What's up guys, Rogue9 here, and with the recent release of patch 2.2 for Operation Para Bellum in Rainbow Six Siege, 6 weapons have had their damage profiles buffed or nerfed in order to adjust the balance of the game. I have tested these new damage drop-off profiles for all 6 weapons and added the results to my online spreadsheet, link below, and in this video I want to show off these results as well as explain what actual benefits and drawbacks will result for each gun. With this patch, 3 weapons have been nerfed: Glaz's OTS, Blackbeard's SR25 and Twitch's F2, while 3 weapons have received buffs: Blackbeard's Mk17 and Frost's 9mm C1 and Super90. The patch notes were quite helpful in giving us the baseline damage changes for each of the 6 guns, and I have tested each gun at various ranges to confirm the drop-off curves. So let's take a closer look at how the damage profiles change across distances. As you may already know, Glaz's sniper rifle has a very early damage drop-off, and this has not changed. What is different now is that the max damage up to 5 meters is 71 points instead of 85, and the minimum damage at 15 meters or more is 59 instead of 65. As you can see from the chart, the greatest change for the OTS is at very close range, with the nerf at longer ranges being less significant. Blackbeard's DMR has become the go-to weapon for players at all ranks, with high-level competitive and pro league play focusing almost entirely on the SR25. This may be partially down to the SR25 being a well-rounded gun in Rainbow Six, but I personally believe that it's mostly down to the fact that his alternative gun, the Mk17, is hands down the worst primary option for any attacking operator. To make the choice a little harder for Blackbeard players, the SR25 has had its damage nerfed from 72 to 61 points up close and from 43 to 35 points at 40 meters plus, a significant change across the board. The Mk17 conversely has been significantly buffed with a 7-point damage increase per shot at all ranges. This rifle will now do 49 instead of 42 damage up close and 33 instead of 26 at 35 meters and more. Now, on the face of it, these changes look as if they will even out the choice between these 2 weapons, but let's take a closer look in a bit as to whether or not there will be any actual impact in-game. The final nerf of this patch goes to Twitch's excellent F2, which up until now was arguably one of the best attacker primaries in the game. Close range damage is reduced from 40 to 37, while damage from 35 meters onwards remains at 22 points per shot. And finally, let's quickly look at Frost's guns. The C1 gains a relatively modest 2 points of damage up close, now 45 instead of 43, and 1 whole point extra damage at 28 meters plus, going from 27 to 28 points. The Super90 shotgun gains 3 points per pellet at close range and 1 additional point per pellet at distances above 20 meters. So there are the raw changes for each gun, but the real question is, how will this affect the combat capability of each of these weapons? More specifically, the question to look at is, how have the required number of shots to down or kill, which I will abbreviate as STK, changed? For Glaz's OTS, you could argue that the changes are pretty limited. This gun used to be a 2 STK weapon against all 3 types of armor at all ranges, and as long as you are hitting the upper body or arms, this will still be the case against level 1 and 2 armored opponents. Yes, before the patch you could get a straight kill on any level 1 armor defender at any distance, and now you will only get a down. But I think the effect of such a change will be pretty limited. The main thing is that you're still out of the fight after 2 hits. The only circumstances where you will see a real difference while playing as Glaz is against level 3 armors at distances from 13 meters and onwards, or once Rook armor comes into play. Here you will now require 3 shots to kill instead of the 2 it took before the patch at the ranges shown on screen, and since the average kill distance in Rainbow Six is 10 meters or less, the most significant impact will be against level 2 and 3 armors once they've picked up Rook plates. 1 extra shot may not sound like a lot, but due to the limited fire rate of the gun, this will actually mean an increase from 255 milliseconds time to down or kill TTK to 511 if using the theoretical limit on the gun's fire rate. The bottom line for the OTS is that you probably won't feel any difference in most gunfights, but when you do, the extra shot will significantly increase the time it will take to deal with an opponent. The nerf of the SR25 follows a similar pattern, although the impact will be far more noticeable. Now, against level 1 and 2 armor opponents, you will see no difference in terms of STK up until at least 28 meters distance, but for level 3 armor targets or level 1 and 2 armors wearing rook plates, you will need one extra shot from 0 to 26 to 30 meters, and this engagement distance covers most gunfights you will face in Rainbow Six. Just like the OTS, this extra bullet means that the SR25 will require 3 shots instead of 2, and that translates into a TTK of 267 milliseconds instead of 133 milliseconds. My conclusion would be that yes, against certain armor types you will now face double the theoretical TTK, but at the end of the day 267 milliseconds is still highly competitive, and if you have the skill to make those shots land, this nerf should not overly concern you. And while we're dealing with Blackbeard, let's go straight to his alternative primary, the Mk17. As you can see from the chart on screen, sadly, even though the buff for his gun looks quite impressive on paper, it really only kicks in at a distance beyond 24 meters as long as you're landing direct upper body shots. Only when facing level 2 armor defenders that have picked up rook plates will you see a benefit of 1 less STK at regular combat distances, and that means 3 hits instead of 4, which is 205 milliseconds TTK instead of 308 milliseconds. And whatever armor category you look at, the Mk17 always remains below average in terms of TTK and is consistently one of the weaker primary weapons. And this even after the recent patch. Has the choice between the SR25 and the Mk17 become a little harder? Yes. But going by the numbers, I would say that you're still better off using the SR25. The only real advantage offered by the Mk17 is the full auto capacity that could help you get a lucky headshot by spraying down an opponent, but it's definitely worth practicing with the SR25 to get used to the semi-auto fire. You'll be better off in the long run. For the F2, the raw damage data already suggested a relatively soft-touch nerf, and this is confirmed when we look at the STK data. At reasonable combat ranges, the only impact is against level 2 armor and level 3 armor plus rook. Here you will now need 4 shots instead of 3 and 5 instead of 4, which means 184 milliseconds instead of 122 and 245 instead of 184. So only 2 out of the 6 possible armor combinations will impact your F2, and in addition to that, in both cases, the new and longer TTK is still below average for assault rifles under those circumstances. Bottom line here, if you like Twitch and her F2, you have no real need to worry about her being underpowered now. You will still be able to do extremely well with her, just not quite as well against 2 armors and 3 armors plus rook. And last, and maybe in this case also least, we have the mini buffs to Frost's primaries. The damage increase for the C1 will result in at most 1 less STK, and this only sporadically for most armor combinations and only at almost double the average engagement range. Saving 1 bullet will decrease the TTK by 104 milliseconds, which is not to be sniffed at, so I guess if you like fighting at long range with Frost, maybe this will benefit you in a few limited situations? But no, the conclusion here is that this buff will have no effect in almost every defensive situation in any given match. The situation for the Super90 is not very different. 280 max damage instead of 256 doesn't really do much for you. I mean, what will the extra damage do at close range? Make your opponent extra dead? Sure, the close range damage output rises from 853 damage per second or DPS to 933, but this number is really nothing special since it is still on the lower end of the spectrum for semi-auto shotguns and shared by 3 other guns. Where you may see a slight improvement is when fighting at around 7 to 9 meters distance, where that little bit of extra power per pellet might just net you a 1-hit down or kill where before you wouldn't have. But all in all, the Super90 after its buff is definitely not the wonder weapon it once was. Yes, it is slightly better, but it basically just went from the absolutely worst choice alongside the M1014 to just about on par with most of the other weaker shotguns. So yeah, we again get a bit more balance into the game, but this gun is still nothing to write home about. And that's pretty much it. The takeaway for me is that for almost all of the guns, the changes are very subtle and their impact is limited to very specific circumstances. And that's actually a good thing. The last thing we really want is to see balancing changes going too far and ruining the experience for weeks before the issue can be addressed. Final announcement, I have upgraded my streams with a face cam, so if you ever feel like hanging out, link on screen and in the description below, leave a follow and I will see you when I next go live. And if you're still here all the way at the end, thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you in the next episode.